Hello, hello. Welcome back to another episode of BloomrPulse. My name is Tabitha Nauser, and today we're going to be talking all things sustainability. I know it's a very heavy topic. A lot of people have very strong views on this, but we have three very interesting guests here today who are going to be talking about their journey into sustainability. Okay, so I think we should just jump right in. MJ, maybe I'll start with you, our resident expert, our eco-expert.
Thank you, Tabitha. So my name is MJ. I'm the co-founder of a science and environment channel called Just Keep Thinking. But I think I still have a long way to grow and learn. I think I'm someone who really is passionate about the environment. I want to learn more, probably like a sustainability advocate and an educator. So here at Just Keep Thinking, we create educational videos online and we post it on all social media platforms such as YouTube, TikTok, Instagram, and even Facebook. And really try to make learning fun and get people to have more awareness for the environment, to nurture that love for the environment. So we cover things like nature, wildlife, biodiversity, and also increasingly sustainability issues to really reach out to the mass audience, because I think there's always a lot of misconception or the topic is just too broad. So we want to break it down for them to understand it more easily, and also to make it fun so that it does not become too daunting for anyone.
That's amazing. Okay, Cheryl, moving on to you. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Hi, I'm Cheryl. So how I got passionate about sustainability is I do triathlons as a hobby. I mean,
As a
don't do
hobby?
it.
Oh
Don't
my
do it.
gosh.
Don't do it. Don't do it.
Hardcore.
And so the swim leg is usually in the open water.
Right, yeah.
So we swim in the water, and there are times like in Singapore and also overseas where I've swum in dirty water and you swim in rubbish, and you come out feeling, you get rashes and all, and also you see the dirty beaches. So that was where I started
really taking it seriously,
can we just have nice water to swim in, instead you're jumping in and you're like, oh, there's black stuff on you and all that. And also I live a stone's throw away from East Coast Park, so I run there pretty often. And there are seasons or there are times during the year when there's a lot of rubbish, like just this week actually or last week. And it breaks my heart when I see so much rubbish washed up ashore.
Yeah.
Some of these rubbish is not even ours. They're like other country, foreign logos, foreign languages on it. So it's not even ours. Yeah, and you see the whole beach strewn with litter. And this is a place where we go to enjoy a picnic. You bring your kids, you go with your friends, and to sit in rubbish is not exactly something we would like to do. So that's how I got into this.
Amazing. Okay, and Eshton.
Hi, so I'm a content creator, but I also co-founded a sustainable fashion business. I used to be on the other end of the whole scene. I used to work in fast fashion. So my business partner and I both used
That's
to...
like a 180.
Yeah, which was kind of one of the biggest causes for us to start this. So, I mean, when we were younger, we would say this is a protest to the whole industry and everything. But I mean, we've come to a point where we'd rather be a bridge to it. We need to find a way for brands to sort of gel into the whole sustainable realm and not be a completely jarring factor opposite of it. So we started with restoring vintage Japanese kimonos, which is what I'm wearing now.
Oh, I love it.
So
Nice.
that was how we had more customer outreach. We used that as a base to sort of gain a following, in a sense, restoring vintage pieces that were very nice, really good materials, but they were discarded because either people didn't want to wear them anymore or it was slightly damaged, and then we'll fix them back up.
That's amazing. I
And then
love
we
that.
used that base to sort of approach brands to work with their damaged things, their off-season items that usually get discarded. But we try to come in at that point where we're like, hey, can we use the stuff that you usually throw away? Which is a bit scary for brands at the start. But us coming in as outsiders is not as bad because we take the heat for it.
Okay, so throughout each of your individual sustainable business journeys, what would you say is the biggest challenge you faced, and how have you overcome it or looking to overcome? So for example, you mentioned earlier, for brands, some of them would be we kind of don't want to give you the scraps, for example. How would you, what have you done to work around that?
One part, of course, is trying to explain to them what we do with it. So you remove the factor of how scary it is. I feel in sustainable fashion, there's a very typical idea of what sustainable fashion is. It's very borderline homeless looking, keep it very yeah, it's stereotype. People dirty.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. We try to go the other, yes, Karang-Guni style. We've been described as modern day Karangunis before.
Oh my
Yeah,
gosh.
but I think breaking that mold of what you typically see as sustainable is very important. It doesn't have to be like cheap or like, oh, you're using old stuff. It can be very nice things. It can be luxurious.
Yeah.
As long as you're taking care of it, you're keeping it for good. So like, I think a big part of it, apart from like brands, is consumers. In fast fashion, it's all about trends and styles like that. It's always going to be that. Sustainable fashion, it's not really just about how you make things.
Yeah.
But I think another big part is whether you actually enjoy what you are buying or using, and are you going to use it for like a really long time. Another big part of like waste in fashion is people throwing clothes away, and there's a huge amount of that. We don't necessarily see it in Singapore like visually because we are a very curated society, I would say. Like our trash gets thrown and then it's cleared very nicely. We don't really see like piles of like clothes everywhere, but it's there. A lot of, I would say Singapore is a huge consumer of fashion. Fast fashion especially is super easy to buy things online.
Yeah,
super easy to throw away also. So that's the issue right there. When we talk to our customers, we always tell them like, don't buy our things just because it's sustainable. Buy it because you will wear it, you will love it, you're gonna...
It's a piece that you'll keep
you'll
for
keep forever.
years.
I mean, if you want to pass it down to your kids, great. But that's the part that like, I think we found the hardest to sort of like educate people, like whatever form of fashion it is. Don't just buy it just because you think it's going to be the new trend for like the next month.
I mean, I feel like I do see with the younger generation now as well that there is a trend of like, oh, let's shop vintage. Like, let's go secondhand shopping. Like, let's go and find all of these pieces that like I can keep and then like repurpose even. And I think that is a good step.
It's like a recurrence.
Right? Like in the right direction.
Yes.
So that's amazing.
For sure,
MJ, maybe for yourself and your business, like what were the biggest hurdles or obstacles that you faced and how did you overcome that?
Personally, for me, when it comes to content creation, I think especially in Singapore, creating educational content is a gap that's been missing in the social media scene, I feel, as compared to like the US or the UK and other countries. So when we were just starting out, we were just trying to figure out the best format that we can really make learning fun, where people who are just scrolling through social media will actually stop and watch it because they find it entertaining, but they get to learn at the same time. And I think we're one of the few educational channels in Singapore to actually be able to make education fun. But also to add on your point about the whole recycling issues, I realized that now that because sustainability is becoming a more trendy topic, people are hopping onto the trend even more. So there's a lot of misconceptions and misinformation around out there. People are starting to see recycling as the solution of it all, when actually it's supposed to be the very last step. You're supposed to reduce your waste in the first place, but recycling is like, yay, let's do recycling. But I feel like it's a justification for you to buy more sometimes. So I'm like a bit skeptical about that, and I'm very careful when I talk about sustainability topics, especially when it comes to recycling. And also things like biodegradable stuff. They need to have specialized facilities to break it down. So like someone who specializes in collecting these biodegradable materials has to be the one collecting it from everyone specifically. So when you put it in the trash, it just gets incinerated in Singapore. So in fact, because the material is different, it's like a mix of compostable and like really still plastic materials, it might actually cause problems if it's sent to a plastic recycling facility. So it might do more harm than damage. And if it's let out into the environment, they will break down into microplastics. But yet they won't break down fully. So now you get the microplastics issue. So I think people should just be a bit more critical and be careful of greenwashing also from companies or what they tell you. If they say a product is sustainable, go and take a look at the supply chain. Where do they get their materials from? If you're going to fly in from somewhere far away, then you're going to emit more carbon emissions. So just think a bit more critically. And I think people will start to see the cracks within all this fluffiness.
Okay, maybe we can like focus, like just zoom in on Singapore, right? So now, like for example, if you go grocery shopping, like they're telling you like, oh, if you want a plastic bag, like you need to pay 10 cents for it. So people are like starting to bring their own bags. But like, what would you say to the person that's like, you know what? Like I'm just one person. Like what difference is it gonna make if I am not using a plastic straw, for example? Or like if I bring my own bag to the grocery store to like get my groceries? Like, would you say like Singapore structurally is set up in the best way to have like a more eco future?
I mean, I do feel like in Singapore, sustainability is still quite an afterthought.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I don't really, I don't think I have like a perfect solution to like how best to make it the first process of what we do.
Yeah.
But I think like right now it's still very like it's still an option. It's if you want to do it, then you can be sustainable lah. But if not, it's fine. You can live your life.
Like there's no urgency.
Yeah, there's no
right?
urgency.
Okay. Like still at the nascent stage.
To be honest, for myself as well, I'm also a little bit like, it doesn't really matter. Like if I put my plastic bag in the plastic recycling bin, like, or if I just throw it in a normal bin, like I don't really think about it like consciously. Like I'm not making an intentional choice when it comes to it. But I feel like a lot of other people are the same as well here in Singapore. Like how is it different from other countries, like for example, Japan? Like it's literally part of their lifestyle. So why do you think Singaporeans don't?
I think I can share a bit more about
Yeah.
that. So for other countries, I think we have to remember that they took many years to form the culture and the habit. And I think Singapore didn't really focus on that, especially at the very beginning. Honestly, Singapore grew very quickly. We were just trying to survive as a nation. We're trying to get our economies growing in the last 50 years or so. So I don't think sustainability was our priority at the point in time because we have bread and butter issues. And right now we're starting the gear, right? Like we're hopping on to the sustainability trend, trying to make it part of our lifestyle, and it takes time. So for the older generations, when they don't have that habit since young and now they're older, it's really very hard to change their mindset.
Yeah.
And for most people, I think once the sustainability action turns into habits, then it's much easier. So I think for people in those countries, they don't even think so much when they, don't use plastic. It's just an automatic thing. So right now, I feel like even though Singapore is definitely not there yet, we are trying to build that culture. I do see schools incorporating a lot of sustainability topics, having festivals to celebrate sustainability and getting people in, vendors in to really teach the younger generations on what sustainability is about and how they can play their part in their everyday lives. So I feel like it takes a bit more education, a bit more time, but I do feel we are going in the right direction.
Singapore's priority as a nation was to help everyone be able to have basic needs like afford housing, afford this, afford that. So a lot of focus has been on building us as a society. And I think being affluent has also kind of affected this mindset because being sustainable is honestly a bit more costly and it can be inconvenient. For example, you have to separate your trash. I have to bring it down to this place and that place. I was going to ask you the question fast fashion is cheaper, right? I can just go and for $50, I can get 5-10 different tops.
Yeah, true.
But for you, I might only be able to get half a top. Right? Yeah. So to them it's why do I want to spend? So they don't. So that I think is the biggest problem: the cost and the inconvenience. So and maybe to a certain extent entitlement. Because we are in a position where we can afford. I mean, look at the COE prices; they are so high. People are still buying cars.
Yeah, that's
true. We have reached a point where we are affluent as a society, but to a point where are we too entitled then? Do we feel like it's okay? Someone's going to clean the beach anyway. Someone's going to do it for us.
Someone else is going to be doing that. I don't need to do it.
The biggest threat to this Earth's demise is thinking that someone else will save it.
Wow, that's actually a really great point. So how do we fix this, guys? What do we do?
That's why we have MJ.
That's why we have everyone has to be on board.
I think her point is education. It's not going to take 1 year, 2 years. It's going to take decades. It's going to take a long time. And
okay, with that point, do you feel like Singapore is set up? Is there enough literacy around sustainability for us 10 years down the line, 20 years down the line to make real impactful change?
Yes. So I think we can look at it on the macro level and also on the societal level. So on the macro level, I think we all know, the SG Green Plan 2030 is this huge plan to get the nation moving that was announced in 2021. So for that plan, if you read on the website, which they actually are constantly updated almost every week. I think I return is something new and I was like, okay.
Oh, wow.
They actually have chart out very ambitious and concrete targets. Basically, we're trying to fulfill the global agenda of resolving climate crisis with the entire world. It's very interesting because Singapore being a small country and honestly, we don't contribute much of our carbon emissions to the entire world. It's 0.1%, but we are doing a lot. We are trying to reach net zero emissions by 2050, which is not too long ago. And we increased our carbon tax from $5 now per ton to next year it will be 25, then 45, and by 2030 it will be it will be $50 to $80. And that's a lot of money because companies emit thousands of carbon dioxide. So it's going to cost them a lot, and they are pushed and they are forced to go into greener energy.
Wow.
Yeah, so
okay.
I think we are charting very ambitious plans on the macro level that people might not know about it. Yes, so we're trying to be a global carbon trading and services hub. Because, okay, we cannot provide anything, right? We don't really have... Our renewable energy, also solar, also we also like 3% trying to push it out already. But what we're trying to do is really build out on our expertise and skills and tell the world that, hey, we are a regional leading center for sustainable solutions for people to come together and have agreements with each other, sign MOU. So we're trying to reach that status, like a
Right.
carbon and trading services hub. Because we cannot really provide any resources or land in that aspect.
Okay. All right. So in terms of like what individuals can do, maybe Cheryl, you can share a little bit with us about like maybe companies that you've worked with, the initiatives that they're putting into. You want to?
I feel like there's still hope. I think we are not, right, like there's no sense of urgency yet, but I feel like we are educated enough, to understand the severity of this. I mean, you look around the world, there are rivers drying up, there are typhoons, places that are not supposed to have snow, and like maybe it hasn't hit us yet, but I feel there's still compassion, people can still feel it. For example, when I talked about, hey, the beach is dirty, who wants to come and help? And then I started like a Telegram group chat. And people actually did join the group chat and say, hey, okay, let me know, I want to come out and help. So I think there's still humanity. We are still, I think it has to be both from a ground up and a top down like initiative.
okay.
So like the government has to set, like globally, whatever, we have this plan, yes. As individuals also, we do our best, like we try. And then companies are also increasingly looking into their processes, because sustainability, it doesn't just mean environmental, there's social, there's so many different types.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
I do see beyond just coastal cleanups, like they're also looking at processes within their businesses on how to create a better workplace, for example. So I think there's still, it has to start like as kids, it starts from school, right? Or
Yeah,
at home.
yeah.
At work, you probably spend more time at work than at home.
Yeah.
Right? So when officers, organizations start doing these things, slowly, hopefully it will change people's minds.
So the other day I was having a conversation with a friend of mine, and we were talking about like, oh, kids or whatever, like, would you want to have children, blah blah blah. And then she goes, I
Wow.
mean, I don't know if I want to have kids. And I was like, okay,
Yeah.
interesting. Why? She's like, well, I mean,
The earth
the
is dying.
world is like, yeah. She was like, the earth is gonna like burn or whatever in the future. And I was like, whoa, okay. That's
Actually,
very intense.
That's one of the reasons why I do not want to have kids as well.
Oh my gosh,
Yes.
interesting. Okay, so
Yeah.
like this is what they would call like eco anxiety or like climate doomism, right?
Wow,
so
that's
how do we like reframe our mindset to not be so like, oh my gosh, doom and gloom, like I don't want kids because the world is gonna end.
I have a legit concern that if I bring my kid into this world and if the planet is decelerating or declining at the rate it is now, I'm just worried that we may not be doing enough to save it in time. And then my poor
okay.
children, I won't be around, so it doesn't matter for me, right? I mean, I'm old-ish. So, touch wood, by the time we run out of resources and everything, I can just
Yeah.
say, I don't care, I'm dead, right? But then I don't want to leave my kid behind in the world.
Yeah, okay, I think I can understand that. But how do we like turn this on its head, take a little bit of positive from this?
Definitely legitimate concerns. But the fact that, okay, we're all sitting here, we're all talking about this, right? It's a start already.
Yes, yes.
I mean, layman style, like we talked about, like plastic bags, even like recycling, although it is the last cost.
Yeah.
These are things that kind of give me hope. I don't know, maybe a bit optimist
That's
kind of
great.
style.
We need
Yeah,
more people like
optimist.
you.
Yeah.
The fact that, I mean, being in the realm of like other people who run sustainable fashion businesses or like talking to you guys, things like that, at least there are conversations happening. It's not like a complete lost cause.
True,
Like
yeah,
it's not that
yeah.
we have just looked at the earth and been like, you know what, we're screwed.
Yeah, any step is a step in the right direction,
Yes.
right? There are government initiatives put in
Yes.
place. We've got people like you guys taking the steps, doing the work, instead of just being like, I'll just leave it to somebody else. Like, I think that's so amazing. And I'm so glad that we got to sit here and talk about this.
Can I share a quote also?
Yes,
that
go for it.
I mean, I do feel like the doom and gloom. Like, I'm not depressed, but I'm like, oh, the earth is going to be
But it's like
disappearing in
it's
50
there,
years, that kind.
Oh, I know, hope
Yeah,
not.
but I've been recently met my idol a few times. So she's a marine biologist, Sylvia Oh. I absolutely love her. And she has this immense ability and power to be able to give people hope through her speeches. So I remember this quote from her that it may look like all is lost, but at least now we know what the problems are. Imagine like 10 years ago, we don't even know what's going on with the world. We cannot identify our problems. We don't know what's happening to the ocean. We don't know how the earth looks like from space, like hundreds of years ago. But now we know so much. We have the evidence. And in fact, we have the science and the solution. So that is something to be celebrated about. Like, that's
for
something we can celebrate. And now the key thing is to really see how we can move the needle. Honestly, we don't need more science. I think the science is pretty obvious and clear out there. But what can we all do in our own aspects to really move the mindsets and shift the needle and try and do something to resolve this crisis.
That's so true. We have all of the information at our fingertips. Now it's just putting it into action. Okay, it's been so amazing talking to you guys. Now, just to wrap up, maybe you can share some initiatives that you guys have coming up that some of our viewers can get involved with. Maybe Eshton, I'll start with you.
We are working towards a relatively big fair. It's called Boutique Fairs.
Ooh.
Yeah, so it's a mix of local brands, overseas brands. There's a relatively big focus on sustainability. So I think that's pretty interesting, and a lot of them are small batch production houses. So not your mainstream crowd of like fashion labels and jewelry brands, but more of a smaller scale. So that's happening in November. So if anybody is free, please come by and say hi.
So for me, I like to do coastal cleanups. I mean, you know, in primary school, we used to get punished and we have to be forced to go and pick litter. But now I'm voluntarily going down to the beach to pick litter
Your own
because
free time.
right? Yeah. So you can just look me up on Instagram, and in my Telegram chat, I'll give updates like, okay, this area or that area is dirty. If you have time, please come down. Okay. With regard to the beaches, for example, it's as simple as taking your rubbish with you. That's all I'm saying. Like, it has to start with something so simple. I'm not asking you to, like, you know, get involved like at a very high level or like grand gestures or anything. You can just start simple. You want to go for a picnic or you want to hang out with your friends, you know, at night along the beach, take your rubbish with you.
If you don't want to clean up after someone else, that's fine. Just clean up after what you bring.
Exactly.
And
Lately, I've posted that Area G of East Coast Park has a lot of rubbish, so I called for help. Like, hey, if anyone's in this area, come down and help to pick litter. So someone replied me and said, hey, East Coast Park Area D is dirty as well. Can you come here and clean? So I responded with, why don't you go and clean it?
Yeah.
And his response, very appalling, was, why do I bother? It's just going to be dirty anyway. Like, I'm just going to clean a bit and like, I don't care. So I feel like, you know, the biggest threat to our Earth's survival is thinking that someone else is going to save it. I think that's a very important thing to remember. Like, you cannot just, you're so comfortable in your life and you think like, someone do it. Somebody will pay, the government will find a way to pay somebody to do it. You know, that kind of stuff. So that mindset is not healthy, because end of the day, we are living on this planet. We are using the resources. The Earth didn't invite you in and like, hey, use all my water, you know? And you have to take responsibility and ownership. I think that is my biggest advice, like a plea, you know, like, I hope they see that this is not a other people problem. It's also an us. It's our problem to solve, and we can do something to help. That's the thing. You know, and why are you not doing anything?
I love that. I love that so much. Okay, and also MJ.
Personally, for me, I post videos almost every day. They're educational, they're fun to watch. So if you guys would like to learn more, you can follow Just Keep Thinking. Just Keep Thinking SG on IG, and just watch the videos. And being educated really does help. It makes you be able to discern the truth from the lies, and I think that's a very powerful knowledge to have for everyone. I also conduct on the side. I conduct a lot of nature guided walks, physical programs, tours that anyone can join in. Some of them are free, so please look out for that. And to end things off, I know that a lot of people like to say, you know, like what can me as one person contribute, right? Collective action does have an impact, of course, to a certain extent. I do agree that, you know, like, honestly, the bigger problems lies with the industries and the bigger companies out there. They have to like change their mindset and put money where it's supposed to go to. But our collective actions turns into collective voices. So when we do things collectively, we are sending a signal and message to bigger governments, to companies out there that, hey, we as a society, we are caring about environment much more. These are the habits that we are adopting, and that's why you guys should change also. So I don't think that our actions are too small. There's a lot more meaning to it. So I hope everyone keeps that in mind.
Okay, I feel like I've learned a lot just in this like short span of time that I've sat with you guys. But thank you guys so much for sitting down and chatting with me. This was so amazing. Make sure you follow them if you'd like to find out more about eco-consciousness, sustainability, and how you can start your own personal journey on that. And make sure you like, subscribe, and comment. And I'll see you guys for another very meaningful episode next time. Bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.